Welcome to Truck Tech. I'm Thomas Wasson, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about fast charging EV infrastructure and what you need to know. Not only is one of the challenges when we're talking about the EV space, getting the EV itself, but how to charge it. And there are a myriad of ways that you can charge them, whether it's a slow charge, a fast charger, a kilowatt, a megawatt. We're going to dive into what all of that means and what fleets need to know, especially as we're trying to figure out that right Goldilocks zone, which is, do I have the right EV for my operational needs, and do I have the right charging infrastructure? So without further ado, we're going to welcome the folks at ABB E-mobility, and it's Brandt Hastings. He's the Chief Commercial Officer there at ABB, and Brandt, absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thomas, thanks so much for having me on the show today to talk about ABB's new megawatt charging system.
Before we dive into the systems, let's talk a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit of background in what ABB does, and then we'll dive into the nitty gritty.
Sure. A little bit about me really quickly. I've spent a number of years in the e-mobility space. I'm newer to ABB. I've spent about a year in this organization, fantastic company. Prior to joining ABB, I was the Chief Commercial Officer and the Chief Executive Officer of Volta Charging, which is a charging operator based in the United States and in Western Europe. Prior to that, I spent a little over 20 years in the media and telecom industries. So it's great to be with you. We are not new to the e-mobility space. In fact, we've been around for over a decade as a manufacturer of charging systems. An incredible organization that is born out of ABB, a company that many of your listeners may be familiar with in other industries, but really setting the benchmark both in North America as well as globally for charging OEMs and how you build configurable, reliable charging systems and manage those assets across the lifetime of their deployment to ensure that those chargers are doing exactly what the customers need them to do, which is delivering energy in a reliable way.
Perfect. And really appreciate the info as well. And we're talking about the basics of charging. I hear there's a lot of megawatt, kilowatt, there's CCS. Give us a high level overview on what the current different capabilities are, and then we'll dive into the specific use case on why one may be better than the others.
Absolutely. So charging, like many businesses, is not a one-size-fits-all industry, right? To really get it right in this industry, it's all about matching the right charging systems with what's actually happening with the vehicle and with the driver. So to give you an example, a heavy vehicle transporting goods from Jacksonville, Florida, up to Atlanta, Georgia, in as sort of as fast a period of time as possible, is going to need a much different rate of charge than a truck is going to need that is spending an overnight inside of a depot and that will go back out and perform its route the next day. We see the same in passenger vehicles, right? When you're on a long road trip, you want to get as much energy as quickly as possible into your vehicle so that you can continue your journey from point A to point B. However, when you're visiting a grocery store, like I do in my house, seems like 5 times a week because we can't plan ahead, it's great to get a top up of energy while you're doing that shopping. Or even if you have access to home charging, right? Being able to top off at a very slow speed overnight. And so again, there's no one size fits all model. It's all about matching the charging system to the use case that's happening on a specific site.
And I'm aware of MCS, megawatt charging. What is the CCS? And let's talk about kind of the differences in those two types. And then we can talk about the best ways to get the juice as you need it in terms of your charging capabilities.
So CCS is a standard that we're much more familiar with on the passenger vehicle side, and now increasingly into the heavier vehicle space. For example, if you're charging your own personal vehicle on a DC fast charger, you're utilizing a CCS type of connector. There are trucks as well that use CCS connectors, but what we're seeing as heavy vehicle usage increases in transport and logistics, the trucks are getting bigger, the batteries are getting bigger, and time hasn't slowed down in terms of how these operators need to get goods from point A to point B. So as a result, the MCS standard is emerging, as an efficient way to deliver a very large amount of energy to the battery architecture of that heavy vehicle in a very short period of time. So it's a much different level of standardization and engineering compared to a CCS. Now, don't get me wrong, they're both fantastic, but they're built for different speeds and different purposes.
That was what I was curious about. Is I noticed the CCS solutions, a lot of the OEMs that have been releasing EVs have been talking about, well, it can take a few hours to charge it. I wonder if that's because if it's an adoption thing. So I can imagine a battery pack on a car. I don't need as much pack as I do in a commercial vehicle because I got to haul more. I got to go longer. I'm going to need more juice. And so when we're talking about that CCS, was that kind of that first step? And now that we're getting more adoption, we're like, oh crap, I got to like charge this thing quicker because it's heavier and all these other dimensions.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, the fact of the matter is the trucks are coming, right? Larger commercial battery electric vehicles are coming. And it's critical that we build the infrastructure ahead of their arrival to ensure that they're able to, and that their operators are able to deliver on their total cost of ownership of these vehicles. The choice to go electric is very clear for these operators, but they can't do it unless that they know that there's a reliable fueling infrastructure that fits the mission profiles of these vehicles. So it's a bit of the chicken and the egg, right, that we've seen in other places in EV charging. And so that's why we're so focused at ABB E-mobility on being the leader in developing this MCS type of charging system for deployment in North America beginning in early 2026. We know the cars are coming, we know the vehicles are coming, right? The heavy trucks. And we want to ensure that these operators don't have to wait to be able to put them into use.
And it kind of reminds me of the old AC DC trend. You mentioned CCS was a DC. I'm assuming megawatt charging. Are we using like an AC? Is this an old Nikola Edison battle where except we don't need an elephant?
No, it's direct current, right? But you've designed an entirely different system to be able to push a much larger amount of energy into that larger battery that exists on a heavy vehicle. So, for example, where most CCS chargers are peaking out around 500 amps continuous, the MCS charger is in fact three times that at 1500 amps continuous. You're delivering a massive amount of energy into that vehicle. And in order to do that safely and reliably, you have to engineer the product differently. So you have to think about liquid cooling. You also have to think about the efficiency of the power electronics that you're building to ensure that you're not losing energy through that entire process. That's something we spend a lot of time on at ABB E-mobility because we know that grid constraints, grid capacity, look, it's on everybody's mind in almost any business, let alone in the EV charging business. And that precious energy that you do have access to, you want to ensure that you're not leaking that through the process of delivering it to an end user in the form of an EV battery. Right. So again, it's a much more complex system that we're building for MCS. And we're the leaders in this space. We're very active in building and defining the MCS standards, which we expect to be finalized in 2025, I think, which will be fantastic. And, saying all of this, we're not leaving CCS connected cars behind either. In fact, we know that some OEMs will be placing dual inlets on their vehicles. They might have an MCS connector plus a CCS connector. And so we've actually designed our MCS system to have both MCS and CCS connectors. Again, you'll push different amounts of energy through those different types of connectors because of the way that they're designed. But it gives our customers that sort of configurability and optionality that they may need based upon the vehicles that they may have. So again, it's having that deep expertise in the customer and in the use cases in the driver, as well as with the OEMs, is what differentiates ABB from others in this industry. And one of the many reasons why I'm so excited to have this job and to be able to talk with folks like you and our customers about the systems and solutions that we bring to the market every day.
And it's such a fascinating conversation because you mentioned earlier chicken and the egg. Grid constraints is one of them. Somebody told me, and someone will fact check this later, it feels like over 100 plus or 200 individual patchworks of utilities and power generators across the United States. So the challenge is also, let's say that Thomas decides to make his own charger. Well, that doesn't mean anything if I don't have the relationships, the expertise, and the previous ability to go to one of these folks and say, hey, I'm going to need some juice. I'm going to put an MCS charger. I'm going to get like 1.5 megawatts. Can you give me the juice? And so talk about some of that aspect, because not only is the challenge just building the lot, installing the lines, putting the chargers there, but the very transmission lines and how they're going to incorporate in the system, that's almost like an art as well as a science. It requires some finesse.
It does. It does. It's planning is important in this. When I think about energy at a specific site, I think about it in two ways. I think first, you have to maximize the energy that you do have. And what I mean by that is you have to ensure that you're leveraging systems to deliver that power that provide maximum efficiency, right? Minimum leakage on the transmission of that power from the grid to the vehicle, right? So that's point one. Point two is all about how you effectively manage that energy on a specific site. You need to have energy management. It needs to sit in the cloud. It needs to be running 24/7 by 365 so that you can intelligently control when and where you are sending the energy on that site based upon a number of different factors and parameters. But those are the two key ways that the industry should be thinking about managing energy at a specific site.
It's fascinating. So one of the math problems is, imagine I get myself a site, and I saw this when I spoke with Zeem Solutions too. They were like, well, let's say we get 10 megawatts. Well, when we're talking with the folks and we have these chargers, we can't turn on all of our chargers, because then if we charge every single vehicle at once, it may be at or above 10, depending upon the specification. Now, this is hypothetical, so don't come after me, Zeem. But the challenge is that when you're adding in megawatt chargers with CCSs, there's this interplay where you've got to figure out who gets the juice, and when I'm not needing the juice, how do I turn it off and use some other one? So talk a little bit about that, because I can imagine making a high quality charger that can handle those constraints and having the technology to in real time adjust it is just as important as just simply installing it. So it's like, it's one thing to build it, but it's another thing to use it.
Absolutely. Know Zeem very well. Fantastic, a partner of ours here at ABB E-mobility. But that's why, Thomas, I use the word systems. Right? This is an industry that's been largely focused on building point products, right, and pushing them out to the market, not really supporting those assets the way that other industries do. I gave a keynote at the ACT conference earlier this year, and I challenged the industry to begin to think differently about EV charging. Data centers, as an example, owners of data centers invest a tremendous amount of money in ensuring that those assets are maintained and supported throughout their lifetime of deployment. And that's an environmentally controlled area. Chargers are complex power electronics. This is massively complex, sophisticated engineering that is sitting out in the wild, quite literally, exposed to the outdoor elements 365 days a year, that has humans interacting with it, plugging and unplugging, and so forth. What could go wrong? The industry needs to start thinking more about maintenance and asset management as an investment in the outcome that they want to drive in the economics of a specific site, more than a cost to minimize. Right? Think about how the telecom networks get to 5 nines reliability. They don't do it by building a site and then walking away and just saying, well, yeah, call us, if something breaks, right? Can you think of the last time when, you couldn't access the cell network? That doesn't mean that there haven't been issues. No, of course, there are issues all the time. We just don't know about them because they've built the reliability into these systems. They've connected them all through the cloud. They're monitored 24/7 by 365. The redundancy, again, is built in. And you're doing preventative maintenance on these and so forth. And so this is an area where we need to get much better as an industry, to really, to maintain these assets proactively and to ensure that they are up to and able to perform the mission that they were intended to do.
And let's talk about one of your assets here. We'll start into talking about the MCS 1200. How does that? That's the megawatt charger. I'm assuming 1.2 megawatts. Dive into what that system is and give us the nitty gritty. Then we can dive into how it differs from other types of megawatt charging. Because if you think of it on a global scale, it looks like there are a few folks, I'm assuming, different ways of charging. So it's important to not only know what North America is looking at in Europe, but also in Asia and other types of infrastructure, whereas these countries are electrifying at a different, I guess it's almost like the same tune but a different kind of tempo or key.
Sure, there's regional differences. Now, here's the key point on the megawatt charging system. We designed this system from the ground up as a high-powered charging standard for high-demand operations, like such as fleets, where it's all about uptime, it's all about scalability, and it's all about predictability and the ability to drive the bottom line in these businesses. And again, the reality is that CCS alone, it has its own limitations. And for many applications, it's just not enough energy in a short period of time to get these vehicles back out on the road quickly in order to be able to perform their mission. And so we thought a lot about this, right? I've always said, I learned this from an early mentor of mine. You've got to go start with the customer. You've got to go out there into the wild and see what's going on and see what the real needs are and what the behaviors are and the use cases are. And that's what we did. And we met with the OEMs and understood what their roadmaps are on building these heavy vehicles and what the battery architecture is looking like in these vehicles, understanding these fleet operators, what their duty cycles are, what their mission profiles are, what their turnaround times are, and so forth. And it's very intentional that we built a 1.2 megawatt charging system and not a 1 megawatt charging system. I mean, this isn't, just the Monty Python, like let's turn it to 11, right? There's a specific reason, because if you look at the mission profile for heavy vehicles, these vehicles are pausing for about a 45-minute break. And they have, on average, around a 250-mile range for these vehicles. And so if you were to charge those vehicles with a CCS connector, you might only get 150, 175 miles of range within a 45-minute period. However, with an MCS charger at 1.2 megawatts and 1500 amps continuous, you are able to deliver 250 miles of range within that exact same period of time. That is quite literally the difference of that vehicle making it to its next or final destination without having to refuel once again. In another 45 minutes, in the fleet space, that's a meaningful amount of time. Those dollars add up. These are, like predictable margin businesses, right? Where it's, very tightly managed. And so we thought about all that when we built these systems. And that's why you will see, what we've done with the 1.2 megawatt system, with the 1500 amp continuous, the engineering and technology that enables that, such as the liquid cooling of both the cable and the connector, which allows us to deliver that rate of energy at a lower temperature, right, which reduces the overheating of the cable and the connector. And then when you see one of our chargers, you'll notice that it looks, very similar to an ABB charger that you might find at a highway rest stop for a vehicle and so forth, with a beautiful 21-inch touchscreen. And the feedback we've received on this screen, what we call our user experience domain, has just been tremendous, right? And that started out with public charging. Those are drivers like you and me driving our own personal cars, right? But it has really extended over into the transport and logistics space, because at the end of the day, a user is still plugging in that connector. And the intuitive and digitally native interface that we're providing on these chargers allows for much more seamless user experience, right? Like, just tell me what to do and when to do it, and I'll do it. Like, let's take out the complete guessing game. We want our chargers to be as easy to use as your iPhone or your Android, full stop. And so the engineering and the design and all of the thought process and work that's going on in ABB, yes, it's absolutely showing up in the power electronics, in the charger, and the cables and the connectors, in all of that R&D. And it is also showing up in how users and service technicians interact with our chargers. We're thinking about when a service technician opens up the door to one of our chargers to do preventative maintenance, as an example. We want it to be easy and simple and intuitive, right? Because the faster that they can perform their preventative maintenance, the faster they can get out of there. That reduces the total cost of ownership, the less amount of time that charger may be offline for that service and so forth. And so we're really sort of thinking through all the different pieces here at ABB E-mobility, because at the end of the day, we want to drive the most optimal total cost of ownership and business outcomes for the owners and operators of these charging systems.
Yeah, perfect. And we got a little bit of time left. I want to thinking ahead. We've got the release of this MCS charger here. When we're looking at chicken or the egg, we're going full circle here. I'm bringing it all around, bringing it around town. I know the Tesla Semi has MCS capabilities. A lot of the OEMs are still using the CCS for depending upon vocational needs and short haul. Is this something where it also helps to position yourself as the provider first, and then as these OEMs, I'm assuming in the coming years, decide to switch to this MCS charging standard as they're looking to expand, you're going to be in a really good spot? Because that's the fascinating thing is I talk with people and they say, yeah, we're all moving towards this MCS standard. And so do you think we'll start to see a lot of OEMs bring it out in a few years? Or do you think the build out's going to come first in like a year or two, and then we'll start to see these announcements as well? You don't have to disclose anything. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah. It's coming, right? The trucks are coming. The MCS standard is coming. We expect the MCS standard to be finalized in 2025. I mentioned before on the show that it's something that we're very involved in. We're experts in this space, but that also ensures that that ABB's systems are able to deliver, right, on that standard, I think, which is key. And again, there will be a role for CCS. There will be a role for MCS. It all comes down to the mission profile of the vehicle that the owner operator is looking to charge. And that's okay, right? It's all about, from our perspective, building systems that are able to meet those different needs. That might not all come in the same system, and that's okay too. But that was really a driving decision for us by incorporating an MCS connector a CCS connector to our MCS all-in-one system that we're deploying in the beginning of 2026 in North America.
That was my final thought. I have asked a few people, what if I want to buy me an MCS truck, but I have a CCS one right now? I want to plug it into my MCS charger. Am I going to zap this thing, or are these things, are they built in that I can still charge it? It's been explained to me that some of the chargers and the batteries, you can still get it, but it only goes at a CCS speed. Is that one of the big things, having that duality as we make the transition?
Sure. You'll deliver lower amounts of energy compared to an MCS through a CCS cable. You're going to max out on, with ABB at 500 amps continuous on a CCS versus 1500 amps continuous on an MCS. You can pull it off of the same charger, and that's okay, right? We're not going to send more energy to the vehicle than the vehicle is able to accept safely, and we're not going to push more energy through our systems than our systems are able to deliver safely to those vehicles as well. And I think, again, it's we've taken this all into account with our systems, right? We've talked to our customers. We know the OEMs, we know the industry. We're involved in the standards, and with an MCS charge that offers both CCS and MCS in the same all-in-one, it's giving customers tremendous amount of flexibility as they continue to grow into the heavy vehicle electric space.
Well, it's exciting times, Brent. Thank you so much for hopping on with us and giving us a rundown. This stuff, I always like to tell people it's just as important to talk about the infrastructure as it is about the vehicles themselves, because just like back in the old internal combustion engines, we didn't get to where we got until we had a infrastructure to support the type of energy and fuel source. So as we transition, this is always amazingly helpful information. If folks want to learn more about ABB E-mobility, reach out to y'all, maybe get in touch if they're interested. What is the best way to get more information?
Look us up online, ABB E-mobility. You can contact us on there. You can find me on social media as well and reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you. I'll leave you with this, Thomas, and thank you for having me on the show today. This has been a really great chat. Infrastructure needs to lead, not follow. One great example that I will give you of this is look back at what happened in the telecom space. When providers began building out the 4G networks, very few, if any, devices supported it or applications required it. Fast forward, it's that infrastructure that is enabling the mobile internet, the app ecosystem, the VOD ecosystem that underpins our daily lives, right, that we have today. Very similar with MCS. The vehicles are coming, new operational models, they're emerging, but we got to get the infrastructure in place first, and we'd love to partner with the industry to make that happen.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Thank you so much, as always. Very excited to see what y'all are coming up with next as we're building out this infrastructure, and we'll definitely have to catch up again soon.
Thanks, Thomas. Have a great day.
Those of you just joining us, if you're watching us, we are also on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify, and so you can check out the rest of the episode if you're just tuning in. If not, check it out for sure. Always amazing stuff with the folks at ABB E-mobility. Also, additionally, sign up for my newsletter, Truck Tech, freightwaves.com/trucktech. You'll get delivered right into your inbox on Friday, a bunch of cool trucking news. And so while you're at it, we also recommend you check out some of our events, live.freightwaves.com. Sign up for them, check them out. You may get to meet me in person. Who knows? It depends. I'll definitely be there at F3 in October, so hopefully we'll see you all then. But that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you all so much. I'll catch y'all again next week.